What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the CrazyFaceUno Podcast. I'm your host, Shane McNeely. And just a reminder, CrazyFaceUno is inspiring others to do good and make a difference in our local and global communities. And I am super excited to have a longtime friend, an old college friend, as well as a man who is kicking ass and taking names. His name is Yonathan Moya. Welcome, Yonathan.
Hey, Shane. How are you? Thanks for having me on, brother.
Absolutely, dude. I'm super pumped to have you on. You've got some really fun stuff going on in your life right now. And I've honestly, I was telling my wife, I'm like, I sent Yonathan an invite. I want him to be on the podcast. He's got some really cool stuff going on. I'm like, I hope he wants to do it, you know? I'm always surprised, and I'm always like so blessed and honored to have people say yes to being on the podcast. I don't know why I feel so like I'm asking something of someone, but thank you so much for being here. I think it's really cool what you're doing, and I'm excited to get into it and talk with you a little bit more.
For sure, man. And I'm excited to just kind of share more. I think all of our stories are so unique and so different, and I think the thing about sharing stories is that some part of our stories are really easy to share, right?
Yeah.
And there's other parts of our stories that are just hard and they take time.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that I've been just kind of in this season of my life. It's just like, I think diving into like, what are some of those more like intentional and hard things that like I need to be more vocal about and I need to share. And like, I don't know, I'm just excited to see where the conversation leads today. So thanks for providing this opportunity.
Absolutely. And as I kind of said in the beginning, we first met in college.
Yeah, at Bethel.
Yeah, Bethel. So, we did the Bethel Boys series, and we just talked about that before we started the podcast, about how you were listening to some of those and really like reminiscing about some of those moments. And it's great to like have the guys that I've had on, are some of the closest friends that I had in you as well. Like you're one of my close friends back in college as well. And, we did a lot of things together.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Do you remember like the first time we met? I don't really remember.
Oh my gosh. I was thinking a little bit about that. And I think I know that we did a couple of different things together. Like obviously we were doing Invisible Children stuff while in college, but I feel like I wonder, and I don't know if this is exact, but you also played soccer, and I was friends with like all the soccer guys.
Yeah.
So I wonder, and it might have been.
I feel like that might have been
mutually both of those things. I don't know if it was through like Manu. Remember Manu?
Yeah.
Or
I feel like we met.
Just like,
I feel like we met the girl I was dating my freshman year over in or sophomore year maybe. What was that?
Okay.
Those dorms, those like apartment dorm deals. I feel like maybe we met.
No, not Ramsey. I don't know, man.
Yeah, but the ones off the road. Yeah. Anyway, maybe it was there, but we really got to know each other. I feel like through our Invisible Children Club at Bethel, and you jumped right in and wanted to be a part, and you started up a couple different groups. You did the Tom's group there, and I was a part of that with you, and you've always been involved in some really cool causes and caring about the world. And it's no surprise that we're having a conversation now in a lot of respects. So,
I think I was thinking about, as I was telling you earlier, right before we started recording, and like, as I was just kind of reminiscing a little bit from some of your previous guests on this podcast, I realized that back in college, I always had this desire to be involved in things that were just like bigger and greater than myself.
Right.
And in some cases, I see you and your group of friends being extremely influential in my life, because I think like I'm older. I was like, I don't know, a year or two older. Yeah. But I don't know that, at least back then, and I've always been like this, at least back then I wasn't one to like maybe, and I don't know if it was because of I didn't feel completely comfortable, or I didn't have like the necessary resources to like get involved. But even then, like none of us did, right?
Right.
But you guys, I felt like you guys were just daring. I think, at least from my perspective.
Yeah.
And you just like did things.
Yeah.
And like I just came along.
Well, see, I feel like that in some ways.
I didn't take the heat for anything.
Yeah, I feel like that way in some ways too, though. I mean, I would say, you know, I was inspired by the boys in the house, you know, like Calvin and Tyler and Sam and Tony, and these guys were always pushing. I think we fed off of each other. I think we like pushed each other.
Sure.
Matt was another one. We talked about Matt before, and you know, you had just unfortunately through the podcast is how you know, learned of Matt's passing and whatnot. But those guys were so influential, not only in my life and in your life, but I think that really honestly, like, and you're included in this. You may not feel it, and I get that because I don't necessarily feel it too. But I've heard so many positive things come from the conversations I've had from old college friends being like, you guys inspired me so much, or like you really challenged me and all that. And man, I think we were trying to blaze our own trail in some ways, and you know, you look back and sometimes I'm sure I know for sure that we didn't do things maybe the necessary or the right ways, but we were trying to do good, and we were trying to do the best that we could.
And at that moment, that's what I think. That's the the decisions that we made, the decisions that led us to the things that we did, and I mean that's what made sense, right? And that's what we were passionate about. And I think like I would say that in many ways we were just kind of following our heart and the intuition of
100%.
Like this matters, and we just want to be involved because I just think about like some of the things I remember, like the rescue in Chicago.
You know, like the rescue.
Like that was, I don't know. I mean, like I remember people from Bethel. Like there was a lot of people in Chicago, but like not. It was a small group from Bethel that actually did it. You know. Yeah. And so like I just feel like that initiative, like it took some risk and like.
I definitely didn't pass a couple finals because of that.
I think I remember that now. Oh my gosh.
I'm pretty sure I went back and took 2 in one day. I like got my professors to be like, "Hey, I'm doing this thing. Can I like come take them later?" And I just took them, and I think I got a D on one, and I'm pretty sure I failed the other one. But
that's one thing that I do not miss about college. It's like homework and like finals, and just like to be really honest with you, like. Every once in a while, I'll have like a nightmare of like I didn't finish like that one class, so therefore like and hence like I'm already like 10 years or more like out of college, you know, but it's just like it still haunts me in my dreams, and I'm like, no.
I know. That's so crazy. What was your major?
So I ended up graduating with a liberal arts degree.
Okay.
And so in college, I had several passions, right? And so I think I went in thinking that I was going to just kind of go down the computer science kind of road. Yeah. But then I think I started realizing that my passions were obviously, so I'm Mexican, right? And I really wanted to use, just my language skills and whatever I did in my life. I wanted to do missions just because I think in many ways that just gave me access to like the world and people of the world. I wanted to do just like, ministry, just in general. And then I think the big thing for me was just kind of justice. I think so much of what we were just talking about, I think, is around justice issues. And
for sure.
Because we were at Bethel, a Christian institution, like I think in many ways, the way that I kind of saw that was, I think to do missions. And so in many ways, that's how I grew up, and I was influenced by that, and that was kind of the path, that I think kind of just led me to my college years, because I was telling my advisor that, and I said, well, here's what I want to do. Like, I want to still use computers. I want to speak Spanish. I want to, do ministry and missions. Like, is there a major for that? And he just said, well, you can do all those things and just do it under the liberal studies path or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well that makes sense. He's like, yeah, it'll come together one way or another. It'll come together. So, I just kind of trusted it. And honestly, like, I was so surprised because it did.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was unbelievable, but yeah.
Do you ever look back and, like, if you were to go back now, would you still do the same path? Would you go down that same road?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I don't know that I would change. I don't know that I would change it because so much of what happened in my early 20s, I think, has led to, like, my early 30s. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so, like, I think if I would change one thing, like, my trajectory of just, my life in the last decade, like, I don't know, like, whether it was a really good situation or, like, a hardship in my life, I feel like has played a role into shaping who I am now. Yeah. And honestly, like, I would just do it the same.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Which is actually really cool. There's nothing wrong with that. I obviously, 1,000% positive I wouldn't go that direction. But for sure. At the same time, there's a lot of things that have made me who I am because of the direction I have gone,
For sure.
But yeah, it's really cool. I really respect that. I think that's awesome that that's something that you would continue to do and see those things as, I've gone through some hardships, but they've also gotten me to where I am. And I can't agree more that there's a way about going through life, and you look back and you can always see things and be like, oh, that's why I went through that. It's provided me with this XYZ. But and I have some of those things too, so that's really cool.
And I think there's always things like, man, like, could have been better at, like, this friendship or this relationship, or could I have been, like, a better friend, could I have been, like, a better student, could I have been, like, all those things, yes, but at the end of the day, like, on a bigger picture scale thing, it's just like, for me, I'm a huge believer in that, I'm a huge believer that, like, the path that we're on, like, and the things that we're facing, like, are leading to something. For me, that I see them as lessons. For me, I see them as, like, what can I learn right now? And so that's kind of, I don't know, that's kind of the way I tackle life. So
well, and I agree. I'm not complete. I'm still going, and man. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. I've done things. I've said things. I have relationships that I wish would have gone differently, or whatever that might be. But I'm not done, and I'm continually working to be the best version of myself as I can be. And it takes time and it takes work, and I'm up for that challenge, I guess. But you have, so it's funny because you moved to Minnesota when I was there, and we got to be, we hung out a few times, but life is crazy, like we said before we started recording. We didn't stay super close or stay in touch super well. I mean, that's on both of us for sure. But you're now married.
Yes.
You also have a 9-month little boy.
Yeah, dude.
And you've got that going on in your life, so.
Oh yeah.
Which is awesome. How is fatherhood?
Oh my goodness. Honestly, like, I don't know that when you picture yourself as a dad, I don't know that I ever even took time to do that or even knew what that was going to be like.
Yeah.
But I love it.
That's awesome.
I think Megan and I, my wife and I, always look at each other and we're like, oh my gosh, we have a kid. And we never knew that you could just love someone that much. Yeah. And, like, just kind of cherish the life of your little one so much.
Yeah.
And honestly, like parenting, I mean, he's 9 months, so I don't think we've experienced, like, hardship with him yet. He's not a teenager or whatever, but like it changes your life. It changes, for me, to be really honest, like, it changes the way I see the world. It changes the way I process the world around me. It changes the decisions that I'm making in my life, because all of a sudden it's just not me anymore. Before it was Megan and I, and we were married, and, like, took that into consideration. But now it's more like, man, like, the future is not, like, my own anymore. It's like that the future belongs to like my kid.
Yeah.
And hopefully my future kids, and like, what am I leaving behind? How am I, what am I doing that's gonna like set them up in a way that is gonna I'm introducing to them, the things that like matter to me, the things that are important in my life, and the way that I think, in many ways like are impacting, the world around us. So
sure, absolutely,
transform your whole life, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, I hope to someday be a father. That's definitely in something that Dana and I, my wife, want as well. We're taking our sweet old time with that. So
yeah, man.
Sorry, Mom.
Listen, don't rush it by any means, but when it happens, it's great. It's great.
Yeah. So speaking to some of the things that I think will be really cool for you to tell your son about someday, or tell your kids about, is your involvement in a group called Experience Missions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I was saying earlier a little bit about kind of like, oh, yes, what was your major in college, right? And I wanted to use all those different things in the workforce.
Yeah.
I never anticipated that it would actually like come about, because one of actually my only job after college,
right,
almost 10 years after college, that I was involved in, and that I started with an internship, and it started with an organization called Experience Mission, which I did a summer internships while in college, then did like a I don't know, like a 6-month kind of long-term internship with them, and then I came on full time. And it's basically their mobilization missions agency. They're an organization that works in many communities around the world, and specifically my involvement with them, not only during college, but even as an employer, I was able to just kind of my title was a regional coordinator, so I was able to develop partnerships and do ministry and mission work alongside many international partners. And for about 10 years of my life, like, that job took me to many different places around the world. I mean, all over Latin America, the Caribbean, in places where when I think about like what I cared about in college, it just like followed up, and in many ways kind of increased that passion for the world, passion for people, passion to like in many ways bring I don't know, just like fight the injustice, that many people around the world are going through. And so I can't even, where do I begin? Because so much of who I am as an adult in many ways is shaped by the things that we care about and the things that we do. And in this case, for me, Experience Mission as an organization and the friendships that I developed there are still greatly influential in my life. And so the partnerships that I developed, I don't know that that I would have been to Haiti right after the earthquake when it happened, if it wasn't because I was in that role.
Which we've talked a lot about, because we both have been to Haiti right after that, which was
exactly.
a unique experience that we both got to experience as well. And dude, I have to say, like, Experience Missions in your job was 100%, and probably in a lot of ways still is, like my dream job in a lot of ways. Like, I really, again, I put you, I don't, it's funny because you were talking about how us as this Bethel group, and you included me into that. Like, sometimes I don't feel like that was my role or my place, or, it's hard to see how people look at you, but like, I really looked up to you, and I really hold you to a high regard in my life as something you've done. You're just an amazing man, and you've been doing some really great things. So that's really cool. Sorry, I kind of cut you off there, but
no, it's great. I think I'm asking myself, since I started listening to some of the episodes this last week, like, why wasn't I the type of person that just kind of took initiative? Because like, I think in college I was like, I wanted to, I had the desire, I had this, like, I think I wanted the drive, but I don't, I don't know why I didn't, you know. And so,
Yeah.
but you, and I include you and everybody else, you know, that was kind of leading this during college for us. Like you guys set forth, at least in my life, a way to get involved, a way to do things. And I think that as I've gotten older, I've been able to discern, like, you know, stepping into a moment and the opportunity right in front of me, and like just kind of darely, you know, like going after it. And so going back to like my time at Experience Mission, like I think about the moment, you know, the earthquake happened in Haiti and the work that I was able to do after that. I think about when the relations started again during the Obama presidency in Cuba. You know, I was able to shortly right after that start kind of bringing some conversation and partnership development, and eventually leading some you know, ministry and mission teams to Cuba. I think about, like, you know, like the hurricane in Houston, you know, and like I was there right after, you know, and and I don't know that I would have been ready to really just like step into things. And when I think about all of that, like so much of it is just like the comfortability, or how comfortable I am with stepping into like hard situations and stepping into things that are going to demand a lot of me. But it's like, it's just the way I've lived my life. You know what I mean? Like, and this goes even further back to like my childhood and my family immigrating from Mexico into the United States, like, you know, and like that was uncomfortable, but yet like I lived that, I've survived that. I think about like growing up in a you know, in a culture or in a community where everything's binational, it's bicultural, it's bilingual, you know, in two languages. And so like I think college maybe sped that up a little bit for me. And then when I was finally out in the workforce and had all these opportunities to be involved in like international work and development work, like I just kind of, man, I took the bulls by the horn and just like dove into it.
Yeah. I see that as well. I mean, you really did. You were a trailblazer in and of itself, and being a part of those things and stepping up and taking initiative, which is funny because, you know, this is something, I don't know if I've mentioned it on a few podcasts, but listening to the podcast afterwards, in the beginning especially, I've always been like, I'm super critical or hypercritical of myself anyway, but I've always been like, oh man, I don't know if that sounded good. Like that didn't go the way I wanted it to. And then I listened to it and I was like, oh, it's fine. Like it honestly was fine. Like there's an internal conversation that's happening. And one, that's something I'm really been working on as of late, is like the self-talk and positive self-talk, and not tearing myself down, but building myself up. And I wonder in some ways if that wasn't part of it, you know, for me in college, for me, for you, I mean, for all of us, is this like lack of confidence, but where does that come from? And kind of figuring some of that out as we go, because it's just so interesting that the perspectives, like it gives me chills literally hearing you talk about how, you know, the group of guys that we kind of ran around with, how the influence that they've had and the influence that we've all had on one another is amazing. And just that perspective on life, which is, I don't know, it's just crazy to think and look back and be like, man, people see things totally different than I've seen them. And if I saw them through the same lenses they did, like, think about how much more I could do and how much more of a capacity I would be able to, you know, help people and do good and make a difference. And I think that that's one of the biggest motivators for me to change my perspective on myself and change my perspective on life in some ways, I guess. But what are some of the things, I mean, you mentioned a few things with Experience Missions. what are some of your fondest memories, or some of the, I know there's some cool projects you worked on, and what are some things you're proud of, or things that you've done that you would love to highlight? I'd love to hear some stories.
So it's interesting that we're kind of talking a little bit about that, because so I was employed and connected to the organization, and in many ways I still am connected, but just about a year and I don't know, 6 months ago or so, I made a transition in my life, and so currently I'm no longer with the organization, but man, like I said, 10 years, like I have really great friendships with a lot of people that are still part of that team. And most importantly too, like I still continue my relationships with some of the community partners that we work with. Some of my greatest, I think, friendships, is a couple in Costa Rica that I consider family, Victor and Sarah. And we were able to, I was able to work with them, in this kind of community development endeavor, to not only bring short-term mission teams in, but also to speak and to tackle what does sustainability mean, for a community that is in this kind of cycle of poverty. I think about Willie Santiago, a great dear friend who helped start the home church movement in Cuba during the oppression, or even just like the communism, in Cuba, when it was illegal, when he could have been incarcerated and even faced death, but yet like his faith was more important. And so like honestly, like even just those two, and there's many more. Like I think about some of the guys that I worked with in Haiti, and like their survival story after the earthquake. Like honestly, many of those are just impactful stories that I just cherish those friendships. I cherish those connections because, like I was saying, in many ways, those things help shape my outlook in life. They help shape the future of my work, the future of who I am as an individual, and the things that I care about and the things that I choose to spend my time with. And so, on a very general scale, I would say relationships for me are just the biggest takeaway from my time at Experience Mission. Other than I kind of highlighted those community.
Oh, I don't know where he went. Yonathan, you there?
Hey, I'm sorry about that. I think there's a mute.
No worries.
The mute button.
It's okay, no worries.
Yeah, but I think I highlighted the community partnerships, but I think also the staff team that I work with there. I think we were a really young staff when we all started, and I think we were all kind of in this phase of growing and leading a in that. When I first started, it was still kind of a newer organization, but I think the executive director and his wife, Chris and Christy, I learned a lot from them because they were older and they had experience, but they really trusted us young people. We were in the early 20s and tackling these kind of massive international projects and working cross-culturally with, in different countries. And they kind of gave us the freedom, and most importantly, they gave us the trust, to lead and step into some of these things. And I mean, in many ways, I feel like that's been kind of your experience too, with like your time after college with Invisible Children. Like, we're as young people, many people in society or even in the workforce, like, don't give us any credit, right? I think if you find the right people that can pour into you and that can kind of lead by example and allow you to just kind of like lead and make mistakes while doing it, but also like create change and bring about solutions that are going to be helpful in the world that we live in today, like, man, that's a great thing to be a part of. And for me, that's what did it. I mean, I think all that time with Experience Mission allowed me to do that, and that's why I cherish my time there. That's why I continue the great friendships that I have with many other people there still today.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think when you can foster an environment where with trust and grace and forgiveness and mentorship. I mean, just coming alongside someone and being that support system. I think you really foster an environment for growth and success. And and a lot of the, it sounds like with Experienced Missions and even at Invisible Children, there was a lot of those moments as well where, man, you're put in a situation that you've never been in, but you're trusted. You're given the responsibility that you would never be given in any other, place. But through that, you grow as an individual. You grow as a young adult, as a man, and you grow in a way in which allows success to happen. And you make mistakes. It's not an easy path. Like, you're gonna make mistakes, but it's definitely that environment when you can see it, when you see people foster that environment appropriately. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and I feel like I grew up maybe a little bit quicker in some areas versus others, but that was a part of, like I said, part of the experience, and in many ways, like, just going back to it was just lessons, and I learned, and it's like, okay, how do I go about it again, and hopefully not make that same mistake again,
absolutely,
and tackle something new. But yeah, man, my time there was phenomenal, and in many ways, for a while there, up until the last couple of years here, it's been kind of the only, professional and ministry experience that I've had. But so I cherish it for a long time, and I will for a long time.
Well, before we get into Border Perspective, could you just give me a rundown, or give our listeners a rundown of like what your day-to-day would be like if you're going into one of your trips with Experienced Missions? Like, what does that look like? Just a walkthrough
so during my time at Experienced Mission, I did several things. And so, I mean, I would probably say that when I was traveling and leading trips, like I'll kind of break down like my time in Costa Rica, and I led a lot of trips to Costa Rica and developed some partnerships there. It basically entailed a lot of logistical setup in order to facilitate like programming. I don't know if any of you have ever been on service trips or mission trips, as we know them within the church context. But, think about this, like somebody's planning your transportation, somebody's planning your meals, somebody's planning your lodging, somebody's planning like the service opportunities, like somebody's planning for transitors to be there, somebody's planning for, like for your
everything to go wrong.
Like, exactly. Right. And so it's like all of that, like I did in multiple countries, working with different like staff members at some points, community partners, and then like helping execute, the mobilization of like dozens of people to like really large teams as well. And so sometimes my trips involved that. Sometimes my trips just involved continuing the relationship. So it was all about just conversations, and like envisioning about like the future and like how our programming could really impact, our partnerships, together. And then other times I did networking, so for example, there was a season in my year where all I did was go to conferences, and try to just develop like partnerships and just get into like different networks, because so much of this depended on the people that we mobilized, and so it's like, how can we get in front of the right people and be in partnership and work alongside the people that really align with our mission and our values, and they see this as important as we do. So, how can we do that together? And other times it was, office administrative stuff that just kind of took day to day, emails, phone calls, video chats, meetings, maybe not so much like the fun part of, at least for me, as an extrovert, as a 7 in the Enneagram, like, I mean, I'm definitely the complete opposite from that, but like, I had to learn how to do that. And in many ways, like, I'm still challenged in learning how to do all of that, because that's also an important part of being a professional and being, a working adult in general. So, yeah, I mean, those are some of the things that kind of were a part of my time there. On any given day, I was doing a mixture or all of those at the same time, to be really honest.
Yeah, yeah. That's really cool. That's really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Which has led you to really what I really want to highlight and what I really want people to hear about and learn about and know about through this podcast. Also, I don't know if you can hear it, but Chansey Poo is in the my dog is in the room here, and he's snoring and dreaming a little bit here. And he's not waking up. So if you hear a little snoozing here, a little dreaming of my dog, that is why he's a integral part of my life.
I have a mini golden doodle, so I love dogs as well. So yeah, doesn't bother me.
All right. Yeah, but border perspective.
Yeah, man.
Break it down for us. Where did this idea come from?
Gosh.
How did it get started? What's some of the background behind it? And maybe first give us what is border perspective, and then we'll go backwards.
Yeah, totally. So I kind of hinted towards okay, we talked about college. We talked about my time and experience mission for almost a decade.
Yeah.
And then I talked about my transition. And so for the last year and a half or so, in between that time, I've been just doing some contract work, consulting for different ministry and missions organizations as well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've been building my own organization called Border Perspective. And in many ways, honestly, it wasn't something that, even though it's, I think, been building for the last few years.
Yeah.
I think it's been a part of my entire story.
Okay.
It's not just something that I think has taken or has come up lately. I think as of late, it's the conversation and the rhetoric and how I'm processing my life, and that's definitely encouraging it and feeling it. But as I dig deeper into it, it's definitely been it's been an entire part of me since my childhood, and so Border Perspective, started, man, the first trip started in 2017, but now, and I'll talk a little bit about the trip, but right now, basically, Border Perspective, we help equip leaders. We advocate for a biblical understanding and justice for immigrants, and also it helps mobilizes the church into action. So what does all that mean, right? That's just statements.
Yeah.
But basically, at the end of 2015, I was in my late 20s. I was 29. And going into 2016, an election year, right?
Yep.
I was just wrestling internally with a lot of, I don't know, this kind of understanding that I've had of who I was as an individual and who I was created by God.
Yeah.
And so we met at Bethel, right? And so faith has been, I grew up, my parents were pastors.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the church. Whether I wanted to be there or not, I was born, I was
there.
Yep. And then going to Bethel, in many ways, I feel solidified my faith. And then working as a, young adult in the mission field, also just increased my awareness of just this picture of God that I have, and has been just greater, every endeavor that I take. But I was wrestling with this kind of understanding of, you always learn that God created us in His image. At least for me, that was my understanding. That's what I kind of held true. And then right as that election year started to happen, I felt like a party that was very trusted by the church, a party that was very trusted by my parents as evangelical, as a parent, a party that I even, in many cases, I remember in college, I helped rally like students and campaign for like George Bush.
Yeah.
Like that was, I was like I don't know, maybe like why I even asked myself like why did I do that? And I think it's because like there was things that I valued and things that I cared for and things that I believed in.
Yeah.
But in 2016, I think some of that started like breaking apart.
Yeah.
And it caused me to like wrestle internally with some I think my identity, because okay, yes, I'm created in the image of God, and like God, God's will is perfect, and like we're created in his image. Like, what does that mean? Because I hear a voice, a very loud voice in politics and in culture saying, well, not Mexicans, not immigrants, because Mexicans are this or that.
Sure.
And I'm like, and it's I don't want to sound like naive in my thinking or understanding of that, but
yeah,
like I've held this truth for like almost 30 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And how does one voice, like I wrestle with this, like how does one voice just come in and like completely dismantle that?
Yeah.
I don't know how it happened. I don't know why it happened, but what I know is that it happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so as I was wrestling with that, I think some people that know me and kind of my circles here in Minnesota were asking me a lot about the border. They were asking me a lot about immigration, and I realized that I've always known it to be a very complex topic and a very complex issue.
Definitely.
And I knew that I didn't understand it myself. So kind of what got me into this journey, one day I was talking with my brother, and I said, Jordan, would you ever do an entire border length trip with me? And the reason why that idea came about was because I realized that many people were a part of the conversation,
yeah,
but yet many people that were part of the conversation like actually didn't necessarily know
or understand,
or understood, people from the border. And so, and I even to take it deeper, like I understood that I didn't even understand the border.
Sure.
Yes, I grew up there. My parents live there. I have friends there and family there. Like, but yet, like, the border is so complex.
Mm-hmm.
You can't fully grasp it into a statement,
Right.
And so, I wanted to figure out this internal wrestling that I was going through, and so I embarked with my brother Jordan on a 9-day border journey. And so as typical millennials, right, like my idea was that I think I was doing it for me. I was doing it because I needed answers. I needed understanding. And so
sure.
what I knew how to do was kind of share stories through photography. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's what we did. We traveled the almost 2,000 miles of the border, and
Wow.
in every state of the way, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California, we stopped in small towns and talked with people to try and understand their take on things, their perspective, and hopefully those things would help Jordan and I kind of have a fuller understanding and a fuller vision of like, this is what it means to live on the border. Even though like we grew up in a small section of it in South Texas, we knew that, the perspective and the understanding was way bigger than any of us.
Yeah.
And to be really honest with you, I think after those 9 days, I was a little bit discouraged because I went in trying to find answers, but I came back with more questions.
Yeah.
I came back with more complexity that I even entered the trip with.
Yeah. What were some of those questions that you came back with?
Well, I think, for example, like, do we need, like, how important is national security, right?
Sure.
Was one of those things, because obviously, like, part of the political rhetoric is that there needs to be a wall built. It was actually after 9/11, after the terrorist attack in New York and the Twin Towers, that I remember being back at home, and the the first type like of border fence started going up in 2006 back in my hometown, right? And so I didn't pay too much attention to that, but now as I did my trip, we saw about close to, I don't know, 650 miles of border fencing. You know, so I wrestled with that. Is an infrastructure, you know, the best answer, you know, to this complex issue of immigration? And in some cases, some people would say yes, and some people would say no. And I was wrestling with that because I think I've seen it work, and I've heard stories of it working, and then I've heard a lot of other negative things of how it doesn't work, and you know, kind of just the opposite. I was wrestling with the migration of people. Why do people live, you know, a place that they call home? Why do they feel like making a journey so difficult and treacherous? What situation do they have to be in to make that decision, right? Definitely, to travel with their family or their loved one and leave everything that they know behind, you know, and come to a new country. I was wrestling with like some of those things, that while at the same time trying to wrestle and understand my own immigration story, my own stance on even just like, what do I believe? Like, what is my voice in all of this? Because I am a child from the border. I am someone who grew up there. I am someone that in the last few years have been just like diving way deep into this. And even the work that I do now is completely reflective on, you know, on this region. And so it was interesting because shortly after the trip, I actually got invited to be at a panel in an immigration panel at Bethel. It was being put on by I think it wasn't necessarily like an official Bethel event, but it was being put on by an Anglican church, and the venue was at Bethel. And so it was interesting that after this trip, you know, it took me back to Bethel. But it was there that I kind of was sharing some stories, and I was kind of sharing with people about this border journey that I had, and someone, I can't remember who it was, but it was an old professor that said, you know, the work that you're doing is so valuable. They said, but mainstream culture isn't the one that needs this, because mainstream culture is already very progressive, very inclusive. In many ways, they even use the word liberal, right? They said, but it's the evangelical church that's the complete opposite of that. They're the ones that are close-minded. The evangelical church is the ones that, like, you know, aren't necessarily as progressive or as welcoming. And so they said, have you ever thought that Border Perspective could be a ministry resource? And I had to be really honest, like, I went into this trip seeking and longing for like answers for myself. I never thought that many people were going to resonate with it or the message or the vision. But as I started digging deeper, I started to realize that, oh my gosh, like just in the US alone, there's like 172 million Christians or something like that, right? This was based like on our research back in 2015. I don't know if that number might have probably decreased by now, you know, with like things that you hear about or whatever. But out of those 173 million, just use that number, like only 12% of evangelical Christians basically stated that their view on immigration was influenced by the Bible. And then out of that, they said that only 21% of evangelical Christians actually heard their church talk about immigration. So think about that. I mean, that's just like hundreds of thousands of people that are being influenced on the view of immigration by another source rather than like
by society, basically.
Exactly. Culture, politics, the media, and for me, as my faith background, like just like I said, I grew up in church. My parents are pastors. went to Bethel, right? Like, I mean, what can you get more evangelical than that? Like, I don't think so. And missions, like all of my adult life, and like so for me, like, I care a ton about the church.
Yeah.
And so to see these statistics and to see that, it brought me back to this wrestling. Like, what did God make me a brown person, a Mexican, according to his image as well? Or did he only make the American church, the Anglo church? And so that's when it took a shift. That's when it took a shift to really highlight, oh my gosh, like, I need to do some work in this. And so the reality of it is that my parents' church on the border is 3 miles away from the Rio Grande, one of the in McAllen, far Texas area in South Texas. And they have been working with immigrants for over 25 years. Yeah. So this is nothing new to me. This is nothing new to my parents.
Yeah. It's just now it's in the media, it's in the
exactly
the eyes and the ears, and people are talking about it now, kind of like you mentioned in the very beginning.
Exactly. And the thing about it, Shane, is that and I think you know me well enough that, man, I don't like to be in the midst of controversy. Yeah. I don't like to be in conversations that are hot topic because, like,
conflict isn't something that you're really excited about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. And so it's like, and this is part of what I'm learning to own. I'm learning how to steward this side of me. I'm learning to steward the experience, my perspective, and my understanding of the border and immigration. And so basically, in the last couple of years, that's what Border Perspective has turned into. It's turned into, I think, a very much a reflection of what I've done my entire adult life, which is mobilize people, but now mobilize people in a service, kind of an immersive way to a place that's I think misunderstood by many. And so I'm working alongside my parents who have a church on the border, very close, probably as close to the border as can be. Yeah. And we're working with asylum seeking families. We're welcoming the stranger. I mean, literally, like, vividly for me, we're just trying to be Jesus as much as we can.
That's the image that came to my mind as well. You're, like, legitimately living out the red letters of the Bible. And I want to state this, and this isn't about me. This is your story. But I think it's really interesting to see how differently you and I have wrestled with a very similar issue. Yours looks different. You're wrestling with different parts of your own life and your own story. I went through this as well, and I know it came out a little bit in the Bethel Boys series, but I've gone the other direction. And I don't call myself a Christian, and that's actually the first time I've ever said that out loud in the public. I think most of my family and most people kind of know where I'm at with some of that.
Yeah,
it's not that I don't believe in God. It's not that I don't love Jesus's message and the red letters, and I'm like really honored to see you take this the direction that you've gone in, to wrestle with it the way you have, and to do this. And before we keep going, I want everyone out there to know, regardless of what your religious views are, something I've continued to say is a truth is a truth is a truth. It's a value. It's a thing that I hold on to. I don't care where the truth comes from. If it's from a different religion that you don't believe in, if it's from somebody that you don't agree with, truths are true. And I think that as I listen to you talk and I listen to what you're trying to do and what you guys are trying to accomplish, and I know you're going to speak to this more, I want everybody to take down their blinders. If you have checked out because of any of the conversation or the religious side of things, I want you to take that down. I want you to listen and just hear the deeper root of what's happening, because and what you guys are trying to accomplish. This is something you care about, and you're using it through the avenue, or you're using what you know and the place in which you come from. But your message is so clear, it's so true, and it's good. It's doing good. It's making a difference, and changing your perspective. You don't have to change your perspective on on your faith and your religion if you don't want to, right? That's your choice. You get to do that.
Exactly.
But this story needs to be told. This story needs to be heard. And your perspective on the life of these individuals, these asylum seekers, these people that are reaching out and trying to better their lives in whatever way that is, be open-minded to this conversation. Don't close yourself off. And let's have a conversation. I've talked about it ad nauseum on this podcast that like I don't care about the differing views. I don't want to get into those conversations. I want to be able to have a conversation and meet in the middle and find the things that we are alike and that we agree with.
Exactly.
And so I really want that to be stated, that if you're listening right now and you're having trouble getting past some of the rhetoric or some of the conversation that you're having, please put down your blinders. Please put down your earmuffs and open your ears. Just listen. Just hear what Jonathan's saying, because it's important. It's an important story and we all need to hear it. With that said, please continue.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate you being open about even where you're at, because like I don't know if it's as we get older, but I continue to say this, like we're all seeking, we're all searching.
Absolutely.
I think wherever that lands us, like we have to be at peace with that, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, like I said, like my entire life journey has been in the church. My entire life journey.
Mine has too.
Yeah, and so I mean, you're not the first friend that I speak to who says like I'm no longer a Christian, and I'm no longer a Christian because these are the things that matter to me, and the church isn't doing it. These are the things that matter to me, and the church isn't responding. These are the things that matter to me, and the church isn't leading me in them. To be completely transparent with you, like Border Perspective came about because I was waiting for the church to lead me. I was waiting for the church to take the lead on this and guide me in it, because I want to be guided by my spiritual fathers. I want to be guided by scripture. I want to be guided by the people that are influential and have authority over my life. But those people did not do it. They let me down. And so I was tired of waiting, because even this is 3 years later, even now, those people are still not ready. Those people are not having the conversations. Those people are not tackling the hard things that matter to myself and that matter, I believe, to our generation.
Yeah. And unfortunately, they may never. And I hope that I hope that isn't true. But here's the thing, that if you're bashing millennials out there, because we technically are in that little thing, this is what I also say. We're in good shape. We're going to be okay. This is our responsibility, Yonathan. Yours, mine, everybody that's listening here. It's our responsibility to change the narrative, to change the things that we hear, and to push the conversations that we want to have. To change the lives of other people and to change our culture in the direction that we want it to change for good. And that's what CrazyFaceUno. That's the message. It's being filtered, and it's not quite there yet. Like I know that it's broad. I know that it doesn't have this like finite direction that everybody maybe wants it to have right now. But this is the conversation that I want to have, and these are the conversations I want to continue to have. So,
and that's the beauty about you and I talking. Even I think one of the reasons you're inviting me on is like you want to understand a little bit better, right?
Absolutely.
And as much as that, like I'm trying to understand a little bit better. I'm not like, yes, this is my life story. I've walked it. I lived it. This is the work that I do now. But like in many ways, I'm still learning. Like every single day, I'm still learning. So I was just in South Texas, on the South Texas border, at the end of last week on Thursday and Friday. Yeah. And as a new parent, Shane, I'll tell you this scene that I saw walking into a humanitarian shelter on Friday morning. We were getting a tour and we were doing some work there, and we walk into this shelter, and on the ground, on the cold floor, on a very thin pad, there was a 1-month-old child that had just been born on the Mexican side of the border a month earlier. The mom, eventually we got to talk to her. She was 21 years old, and she left 2 months prior to us meeting her on Friday. She left from Honduras. She walked through most of Central America, through Mexico. Eventually found herself pregnant. She was pregnant, found herself giving birth on the Mexican border, and eventually a month later she's at the shelter in South Texas.
Wow.
As a new parent, do you know what that does to my heart?
I can't imagine. I honestly just can't imagine.
At this point, it's not about whether she's doing something legal or illegally, or she's documented or undocumented. Fortunately enough, she's pursuing a legal path to asylum, to seek asylum, which is a legal thing, in the world. And so she found herself at this refuge. But for me, she's a human being. It's her humanity. It's the humanity of that 1-month-old child. The things that divide us are our political stands, or the things that we see that are right or wrong. But in this instance, as a father, for me, I can't imagine taking up whatever I own, my family, my child, and journeying through nations to find something better for whatever the reason is. And I didn't get deep into her story to really try and understand that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
What matters is the fact that there's a 1-month-old baby laying on a cold floor.
And she needs help.
You know what I mean?
She wants help.
And they need help. And how are we responding? And so for me, it's not about converting them to become a Christian. It's not about forcing my faith upon them. It's about the way that I respond to someone who is in need. That's what matters to me.
Absolutely.
And so I'm doing it in the avenue of faith because this is what I know.
Yeah.
I've been surrounded and influenced by the church my entire life. My parents continue to lead a ministry to immigrants for over 25 years. So this is how I know how to respond, but never in a way that I'm trying to convert somebody, never in a way that I'm trying to change somebody's mind, but I just want to be more like Jesus. I just want to be more compassionate. I want to be empathetic. I want to understand. And like you said, I want to have a balanced perspective. I want to bring people to the middle. I want to have conversations, even with people that, and dialogue with people that don't agree with me, because that is what I truly believe, that is why we're so indifferent towards one another, because we don't listen to one another anymore. And the fact that I'm wrestling with my faith, and the fact that you said I left my faith, well, we can talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we need to be okay with you being where you're at and me being where I am. And
absolutely.
It's we're all chipping away at something that is called life. And at the end of the day, man, I just hope, for me and my words, I just hope that God uses that in whatever way He will.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's my understanding of it, and that's why, that story is one of many, that I've encountered as we do this work on the border. But as heartbreaking as that is, that, it motivates me and encourages me, and it's just that's a part of the story that I need to be more vocal about. That's a part of the story that, on immigration, that I'm learning how to steward better, because I've shied away from that for most of my 20s. I've shied away from the fact that I'm Mexican. I shied away from the fact that I have an immigration perspective. I've shied away from the fact that I grew up on the border and that I know the border.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do. We take people on these trips and we immerse them. We do some learning. We do some service, but holistically try to bring them into an understanding of how, not to give them answers, but just to allow them to enter into the complexity of a much bigger experience in life that people who live there, are living. Yeah.
Okay. So you've touched on a few things. One part of Border Perspective is you're providing an avenue for people, sounds like specifically more geared towards people in the church, but just people in general, to experience the different stories or the life on the border in a lot of ways. Is that correct?
Yeah, totally. And our trips our trips. I'll go back to that stat that I shared, because I care so much about the church, and I saw those staggering statistics that said the church has a blind spot. Yes, I'm catering these trips to people that are in front of congregations, people that are leading our Christian organizations.
Absolutely.
Because we're the ones that are helping shape, the atmosphere within that context of a church setting or an organization. Absolutely. And so I want to help bring that balanced perspective among those leaders. But at the same time, like, we're not opposed if, we've hosted several people. I mean, we've hosted from some politicians who are of no faith to, to people that are in the medical field who just want to come and help. Like, and so by any means, we don't have a certain, like, checkbox that if you don't fit this, you can't participate in some of the programming that we have.
Good for you guys. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah. And then what are some of the other specifics? What are other ways that you guys are providing and being, to say it in words that you've already used, being Jesus to these people, to being compassionate, to loving, to caring, to actually meeting their needs?
Yeah. So we talked about these trips. And so, like, that's one of the most tangible ways that, like, I'm inviting people to come journey the border with us, with my parents, and help, kind of helping bring different voices and just learn together, right? Another thing that we've been doing, just because of literally, thousands and thousands of asylum seekers that have flooded the borders, people are in need of just the most practical things. And I'm talking about, like, hygiene items. I'm talking about toothpaste, toothbrush, deodorant, like things that many of us have, take for granted. In our homes. But so we have we call it a Welcome Kids campaign. The Welcome Kids campaign basically helps us to meet some of the physical, emotional, and spiritual needs of asylum seeking families that are seeking refuge on the border. So basically that's for $15, we pack a hygiene kit for a family. And because this is going back to, like, my faith journey too, like, what I see in these stories is that people are being emotionally broken. Their spirit, they're losing hope. And so the way that I know how to provide hope and encouragement is through Christ, because for me, Christ is, Christ restores and renews all things and brings me hope and peace. And so, yes, we're meeting. If someone's hungry, we're giving them food. If someone needs a shower kit, we're giving them that. If someone has emotional and spiritual needs, like, we're also, like, listening to them and praying with them and giving them just an encouraging text, that's going to be uplifting to them. And in many cases, sharing a Bible with them. And like I said, and not in an effort to convert them, but just because I truly believe that many people are longing for something new and something different. But here's the thing, like, and I don't know if it's naive of me to say this, but I don't believe so. Like, making $1 more isn't gonna bring peace to my life. Like, making, like, achieving the American dream is not completely going to fulfill me physically, right? And so, like, I think we're all searching for hope. We're all searching for internal peace. That's why I think, other than, like, leaving the atrocities that we're facing in our home country, that's why people are leaving. Like, well, I think we're all longing for this bigger meaning of life and peace and hope and, like, a better, and maybe we can say that, a better life, but, like, how do you do that? How do you get there? And so for me, it's just inviting people into that journey, because that's what's happened for me. And I'm not saying I'm perfect by any means, and because I'm very much still on that journey. But this is a way that we're just encouraging people, helping people physically, emotionally, and spiritually, because I truly think that it has to be holistic. I can't do one versus the other, because there's so much physical need and there's so much trauma happening. And it's like, how do you address all of that?
Right. I'm taking notes as I go, but what are some of the things you're lacking within, like, what are your needs as an organization, as you as an individual, as one of the leaders and the founders of this, along with your family and your brother? You are all involved with this, correct? Like, it's you, your brother, your mom, and your dad that are kind of
so it's a family endeavor. My parents are local. Obviously, I live in Minneapolis, and people, well, how are you leading this border thing? Well, like, man, since April, I've been there almost like every month. For a week at a time or just a few days at a time, and so it's taken a toll on my family too. But the important thing is that, like, my parents need support. The important thing is that, like, none of us, and even law enforcement agencies, like, we're completely overwhelmed with the amount of people that are coming through the border. Nobody chose this. Everybody's trying to now respond on how to like handle this crisis, because it is a crisis. And so I would say the biggest thing for people, the biggest thing that allows us to do the work that we're doing is on our website. You can go to borderperspective.org and you can give either $15. $15 will help fund one of these kits, you know, for an individual, or you can assemble kits yourself. We've had some people that are giving up their birthdays. It's incredible, because I've never anticipated that my personal journey was gonna also invite other people into it to support and help. But I'm encouraged by some people giving up their birthdays and bringing their friends together and assembling kits and then mailing them to us. You know, I've had student groups and colleges and universities assemble these things and like send them to us. And so whether you can give $15 or you have a group of friends, you know, and or you want to give up your birthday, whatever that looks like we're accepting all of these donations, because it's just helping us to further the work that's already doing that we're doing on the border with many of these families that are in need. Yeah.
So just if you're listening out there, go to the website. What's the website?
Borderperspective.org.
Borderperspective.org. I'm gonna write that down myself.
Yeah.
I know I've got it, but borderperspective.org, and be a part. And I'm trying to process how CrazyFaceUno is going to play a part. We're going to financially be supporting Border Perspective.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I can't put a number on that at the moment, but I would like to, as we get off this, the podcast, I would love to have a more of an in-depth conversation with you and how we can work together to help you. Be looking out for a matching campaign from us at CrazyFaceUno here, and just in our involvement, because I'd already kind of in my head before this had even started knew that this was something that I wanted to be involved in and I wanted to support, and I would really like to find a way for you, for Border Perspective and for CrazyFaceUno to to be partners and to help one another and what we're trying to accomplish. And so,
for sure.
If you're listening, be a part. $15, you can put together your own kits. If you need contact information, I'm sure you can find that on the website. You can also reach out to us at CrazyFaceUno, and we're gonna help. We're gonna help in any way we can. So, what is the future of Border Perspective? What's your goal? What do you want to see happen?
Yeah.
Where do you see this going in 5 years? If you're to look back at where you started to where you're going, what do you want it to look like?
It's incredible to think that I'm now leading Border Perspective, because if you told me that when I left, just bringing it back to the earlier conversation, when I left Experience Mission, I was going to be leading kind of Border Perspective and stepping deeper into like my identity and wrestling with that. That scares me. That's scary to me. And but I've heard just lately too that the things that scares you the most, it's what you have to be doing. Right. And so like I can't, to be really honest, like it's been a really rocky like last and a half year of like just trying to build something from scratch. I mean, you're kind of going through that process yourself, right?
I get it.
So there's sacrifice. There's like, I mean, we don't even have to go into all the details, but to really honest with you, like I'm excited about the future of Border Perspective, because the reality of the need of the immigrant is that it's been there before this president, is going to continue to be there before this president. And so I want to build something long lasting, that hopefully it even outgrows me and outlives me, to be really honest. You know, I think we would all be in a really great place if, you know, we talk about legacy, if we could do that for other people. And so I hope that Border Perspective outgrows me, that it outlives me, that when my family's no longer at the border, that many people are being reached and influenced and helped because of something that we helped start. And so, I mean, tangibly, in the next year, in 2020, we're going to have 6 different individual trips out there for leaders and people that want to join us on these. And so we cap these at like 15 to 20 people at one time. So there's going to be 6 different dates. We also have some group opportunities for people to bring their, just a student group, whether it's you're a college group or whether you're a church. And then I think we're just going to continue diving deep into like what are the needs to really support immigrants, whether they're on the border or in different places of our nation, in a sustainable way. I don't know what that means. I mean, I don't know if that's creating something more sustainable, like jobs. I don't know if that means creating more campaigns like this, but we definitely want to think deeper and long term about what it looks like for us to invest into the future of making Border Perspective be sustainable and active and like I said, to a place where it can really have impact way past myself.
Absolutely. And I think that's I can resonate with a lot of what you just said. I want to point out that I'm sure you've experienced some of this with Experience Missions, even though it was a smaller group. There's always red tape. There's always a lot of like just stuff you have to get through in order to make. And I think that by keeping things kind of open-minded and opening that conversation of even the perspective for yourself, being able to adjust and adapt on the fly. Something that I learned through Invisible Children is one of the biggest things you can be able to do is to be able to go, this is the need right now.
Yeah.
And if that changes within 3 months, then we're going to change and we're going to adjust and we're going to adapt. Yeah. But the foundation and what we're trying to do is always going to be here. And so I really respect that. And I hope that people that are listening, it's not that you guys don't have an agenda or where goals you're going. It's that you are intentionally keeping things open to adjust to the need as things change and things grow and as you become more wise, as you become more have a better understanding of some of the needs. You've said it before. You said at the beginning, this is a complex issue. Complex issues don't change overnight. Things aren't going to happen overnight. And like you said, whether it's this issue happened prior to our president now, there was issues then, there's issues now, and it's going to proceed into the future with whoever takes over and whoever is in charge of our country well into the future. And so it's one of those things that it's being able to just be present and knowing the need. So I really respect that a lot, and I think that's a wise move in a lot of ways.
I mean, on a practical level, I'm telling you, like probably a year and a couple of months ago, when we first started doing work. So, we've always done work long term with families who settle on the border and who, start a new life there. But it was probably last summer sometime, when we first met a group of about like 75 people, and these people were from Haiti and Cuba and Venezuela. And then, as we started meeting other small groups from, groups of 12, groups of 10, groups of 5. And then all of a sudden, like just this year, at the beginning of this year, it was 1,000 people a day, Yeah. And so like, you can't plan for that.
No. And the needs are great. I don't think that people understand what 1,000 people and serving 1,000 people, what that's like. That is, 1,000 people is, that's just, it's a lot. It's almost like my high school, small town high school.
And so that's what the change, like, every day looks different for us.
Yeah.
Every day looks different for my parents because they're also the ones in the front lines. And so we're just trying to steward it as best as we can. We're trying to step in as best as we can and help as best as we can. So, if today this is what makes sense, this is what makes sense for today because this is the need in front of us. Tomorrow or a year from now, it might look very different, but I think we're just holding it open-handedly because it's hard work, but it's good work. And so I appreciate your time to just kind of dig deeper into kind of the background of the story.
Absolutely.
and just kind of get it in front of kind of your tribe, in its own way. And so
well, you always have a voice here. You always have a voice, and if the need comes and you need a voice to speak from, a platform to speak from, we'll adjust here as well and make sure that you have that voice. So again, I want to support you in any way I can, and any way that CrazyFaceUno can, especially financially. I know that that's always a great need, and that's part of the process of CrazyFaceUno right now is kind of exploring that avenue of bringing money in, but really looking at how we're bringing money in to give it away. It's not for us, it's for other people. So that's really important to the mission that I have with CrazyFaceUno and seeing where that goes. So you're at the top of the list, one of the people at the top of the list in this organization that you've created, that I would love to be a part of and love to invest into. So
thank you so much.
Absolutely. Man, Yonathan, we went so deep into things. I think we're just going to call it right there. I think that's we've covered enough, and I think that's a deep enough conversation. Hopefully we can have you back on, in the near future, and we can talk a little bit more and dive into a little bit more about you and some of the other things that you're involved in. And I think that would be fun. And just to hear out, honestly, one of the biggest things I'd really like to hear at this point in time is your immigration story. And I think that would be powerful as well. And you've talked about wrestling with some of those different things, and I would love to chat with you more about that. So let's keep that on the forefront of our minds, and let's work together to see what we can do with that in the near future.
Okay.
But so let's plug borderperspective.org. Please go to borderperspective.org. Check out the different ways you can get involved, whether that's in the near future, in the next year or so, being one of the people that you can be a person on one of the trips potentially, and or just donating $15 to at least $15. Donate more to help with these kits that are helping with the needs of people directly that are coming and seeking asylum, and that Border Perspective is meeting and talking to and helping. What else? What other ways can people stay involved? Can they stay involved through your Instagram, through Border Perspective?
I would say, if people decide to kind of learn more about my story, I'm all over. I'm a typical millennial. We're all over social media,
Absolutely.
Right? So Yonathan, Moya, but I would say most importantly, follow Border Perspective on all social medias, and you can just kind of stay updated on some of the stuff that's coming up, some of our needs, some of the progress and impact. But I would say Border Perspective, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
Absolutely.
So
I'll be sharing those when we post this, and that way you can have easy access to those avenues. We'll make sure that we can spread the word as much as possible. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Shane. Thank you for your time, and I'm excited to just keep talking with you, and I'm excited about your project too, and so
thank you so much.
We can be of support. I'm excited for you. So
awesome. Thank you, Yonathan. And remember, everybody, CrazyFaceUno is inspiring others to do good and make a difference, and this is one way that you can do that, both locally and in a global mind as well. So go visit borderperspective.org, and let's help out Yonathan and this organization that's doing some great work. I love you all out there. Thank you so much. Yonathan, thanks again. Love you guys. Peace.